Have you ever felt it? That rare, almost unexplainable presence when a woman walks into a room and everything softens. Not because she's loud or commanding, but because she doesn't need to be. She carries something ancient, something grounding, something real. She doesn't demand attention, she holds it. A quiet force. A living pause in a world that never stops moving. She doesn't have to prove herself. Her very being proves something that words can't touch. And when you feel it, when you see it, you know you're in the presence of something we've almost forgotten how to name. It's not performance. It's not curated. It's not the femininity Instagram is trying to sell you. It's not about flowing dresses and soft filters. It's deeper. It's the energy of safety, of softness without weakness, of power that doesn't dominate but invites. It's the kind of presence that makes a man breathe easier without even knowing why. That kind of femininity is rare now, almost mythical. It used to be normal. Now it feels like legend. And here's the part no one says out loud. Most women don't even know what they've lost. They've been told that the traits that once made them magnetic are now liabilities. That softness is submission. That nurturing is oppression. That leaning into their natural rhythms makes them less, not more. So what happens? They adapt. They armor up. They build walls and call it confidence. They speak sharper, walk faster, push harder, because they think that's what power looks like. But something in them is dying. Slowly. Quietly. And everyone feels it. Men feel it the most. Not consciously, maybe. But deeply. They feel the absence of something they can't name. They crave a certain kind of woman not because of how she looks, but because of how she makes them feel. Centered. Calm. Stronger even. Like there's finally a space where they don't have to be on guard. But that space is disappearing. Replaced by a version of womanhood that's constantly posturing, constantly proving, constantly in defense mode. And when that happens, men don't argue. They withdraw. Not because they don't care, but because there's nothing left to connect to. This isn't about going backward. It's about remembering. The feminine presence, real, grounded, soft but not weak, used to be the anchor in a man's storm. The thing that reminded him why he fights so hard out there. When she's gone, the world gets colder, harsher, more mechanical. We pretend everything's fine, but you can feel it in the loneliness, in the shallow hookups, in the rising number of men checking out, not because they're lazy, but because they're tired of coming home to more noise instead of peace. That kind of femininity, the real thing, it's not gone, but it is hiding. And if you've ever encountered it, even for a moment, you know it's worth everything. Because once you felt the real thing, you realize how rare it's become, and how deeply the world needs it back. It didn't start with bad intentions. It started with promises. Promises of freedom, equality, power. Women were told they'd been held back for too long, and in many ways they had. But somewhere along the way the message got twisted. The goal shifted. Instead of honoring the feminine, the world told women to abandon it. Softness was rebranded as weakness. Sensitivity became a flaw. Dependency? Shameful. The solution, they said, was simple: become more like men. So they did. Not because they hated men, but because they believed it was the only way to survive. To win. To matter. They learned to compete, to dominate, to hustle. They started walking through the world with sharper edges, louder voices, tighter shields. And it worked, on the surface. Careers advanced. Paychecks grew. Applause came. But inside, something started to wither. They stopped listening to their intuition. They started ignoring their need for connection. They wore ambition like armor and called it strength. But it was never their definition of strength, it was someone else's script. A script built for war, not for love. For conquest, not for communion. And here's the heartbreak. They didn't betray themselves out of vanity. They did it out of fear. Fear of being dismissed. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of being seen as fragile. So they toughened up. Not because they wanted to, but because they were told they had to. Vulnerability got shoved into the shadows. The soft parts got buried. And the world clapped. But at what cost? The warmth that once made them magnetic started to disappear. The quiet confidence. The emotional intelligence. The nurturing presence. all traded for a seat at a table that demanded masks, not truth. They weren't just competing in the workplace, they were competing in relationships too. Trying to lead, fix, dominate. Mistaking control for love. But love doesn't work like that. Polarity dies when both partners are trying to be the same thing. And no one wins in that game. Men feel it and shrink back. Not because they can't handle strong women, but because they can't feel safe with someone who doesn't trust their own softness. They don't want a rival. They want a refuge. But when women suppress that part of themselves for too long, it starts to feel foreign. Even frightening. Like softness is a threat instead of a strength. The world told women to abandon their nature to be powerful. But the irony is their true power was their nature. Their ability to connect. To feel. To inspire. To soften the hardest man without saying a word. That wasn't weakness, it was magic. Sacred. And now, it's missing. They didn't fail. They adapted. But in adapting, they were handed a definition of success that cost them their essence. And now we're all living in the aftermath, wondering why everything feels off and no one knows how to fix it. There's a reason the spark dies. A reason two people can check every box on paper but feel nothing in person. It's not about compatibility charts or shared hobbies. It's about energy. Opposites don't just attract, they ignite. Masculine and feminine energy aren't preferences, they're polarities. And when both partners show up with the same charge, the current goes dead. This isn't about gender roles or outdated traditions. It's about something older than culture. It's about nature. Masculine energy moves forward, focused, grounded, directional. Feminine energy expands, fluid, receptive, magnetic. One builds the container, the other fills it with meaning. One drives, the other flows. Together they complete the circuit. Alone they cancel each other out. The modern world has blurred the lines. Women are taught to lead, conquer, outperform. Men are shamed for asserting, protecting, standing firm. So what happens? Everyone's stuck in neutral. Relationships become roommate dynamics. Two people coexisting but not connecting. The fire's gone. Not because love isn't there, but because polarity isn't. You can't have chemistry without contrast. When both people bring masculine energy, logic, control, direction, they clash. When both are in the feminine, emotion, indecision, surrender, nothing moves. There's no pull, no dance, no edge. Just a flat line. Men are wired to pursue, to stabilize, to hold steady in the storm. But they need something worth anchoring. If a woman steps into that same role, there's no space for his energy to land. He's not resisting her power, he's responding to her frequency. If she leads, he steps back. If she commands, he yields. It's not about weakness. It's energetic physics. Feminine energy doesn't need to chase to be powerful. It draws in. It holds presence. It inspires movement without force. It doesn't compete, it complements. And in doing so, it unlocks a side of a man that wants to provide, protect, pursue, not because he's required to, but because he's invited to. When a woman embodies her feminine essence, fully, unapologetically, she becomes irresistible. Not because of how she looks, but because of how she feels. She creates a contrast that calls his masculine nature forward. She doesn't have to say, lead. Her energy asks for it. And he rises, not out of duty but out of instinct. But when she's always in control, always leading, always in her head, he doesn't feel needed. He feels replaced. Not out of ego, but because there's no space for him to show up. So he stops trying. Or he walks away. Or he stays silent, feeling invisible in a relationship that's supposed to make him feel alive. This isn't about playing small. It's about playing true. Feminine energy is not submission, it's surrender to trust. Masculine energy is not dominance, it's devotion to purpose. When both are honored, love feels electric again. Magnetic. Natural. But when the polarity dies, so does the desire. The spark isn't missing because people stopped loving. It's missing because people stopped opposing. And without that sacred contrast, the dance of intimacy turns into a tug of war. No one wins. Everyone's exhausted. And the thing we're all craving, real connection, slips further away. Love used to feel like home. Now it feels like a negotiation. Every word weighed. Every action measured. Every moment filtered through a mental scoreboard. What did I give? What did I get? Relationships have turned into ledgers. Balance sheets of effort, time, attention. And beneath it all, no one feels safe. No one feels seen. Because it's not love anymore, it's business. When femininity is absent, the energy shifts. It gets cold. Calculated. The softness that used to hold the space between two people is gone. What's left is performance. Obligation. A constant sense of proving. Women feel like they have to earn respect with results. Men feel like they're being auditioned, not loved. Everyone's exhausted, but no one knows how to stop the cycle. This isn't partnership. It's survival. Two people, both guarded, both defensive, trying to win instead of connect. Trying to avoid being the one who gives more. It's not generosity, it's strategy. Every compliment is transactional. Every touch carries expectation. Every silence feels like punishment. Instead of peace, there's pressure. Men enter relationships looking for rest. They want a place where they can let the armor drop. But what they often find is another battleground. Another place they're expected to perform. Provide more. Do more. Be more. And when they falter even slightly, it becomes fuel for resentment. Suddenly he's not showing up. He's falling short. His value gets tied to what he can produce, not who he is. Women too feel the drain. Always planning, managing, controlling. Always holding everything together. But without softness, even their strength turns brittle. They become hard without realizing it. Not because they want to be, but because they don't feel safe letting go. So the relationship becomes a loop, both people stuck in roles they resent, trying to feel connection through control. Love can't breathe in that environment. Intimacy shrinks when everything feels like a test. When affection is conditional. When appreciation only comes after effort. Men pull away because there's no invitation to stay. Not emotionally. Not energetically. They're tired of performing masculinity while being subtly punished for it. Tired of walking on eggshells. Tired of being in a relationship that feels more like a job interview than a bond. And the women? They're tired too. Tired of leading everything. Tired of pretending they don't need support. Tired of overfunctioning, overthinking, overcompensating. But they've been taught that to stop would mean weakness. So they stay in motion, silently resenting the very men they won't allow to show up. Without true feminine energy, receptive, nurturing, grounded, love turns mechanical. It's all effort and no ease. All doing, no being. No wonder people feel burned out. No wonder the passion dies. Because love wasn't meant to be earned like a paycheck. It was meant to be given. Freely. Fully. From overflow, not depletion. And when that giving stops being sacred, when it becomes a strategy to get more in return, something vital breaks. And once it's broken, it's hard to remember what love was supposed to feel like in the first place. It looks like femininity is everywhere now. Perfectly posed. Carefully styled. Soft lighting, delicate gestures, flowy dresses. But look closer, it's not energy, it's theater. A performance crafted for attention, not connection. The illusion is convincing, but the impact is hollow. Men scroll through it, swipe past it, nod at it, and feel nothing. Real femininity doesn't try so hard. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need constant validation or digital applause. It's something you feel, in a glance, in a silence, in the way a woman simply exists without trying to impress. It's presence, not performance. And it cannot be faked. What's happened is simple. The costume replaced the character. External softness masks internal hardness. Women learned how to look feminine without actually being feminine. Smiles are curated. Words are rehearsed. Vibes are engineered. But underneath the aesthetic is tension. Control. Fear. A deep resistance to trust, to relax, to surrender. You can't fake safety. You can't pretend softness when your spirit is armored. A man can sense when he's not really welcome, when he's being tolerated, tested, or managed. No amount of lipstick or lace can disguise a heart that's closed. You can decorate the shell, but the energy always tells the truth. Men aren't looking for decoration. They're starving for authenticity. For a woman whose softness isn't an act but a way of being. One who doesn't need to constantly prove how independent she is, because she's secure enough to receive. One who knows that power doesn't have to be loud and trust doesn't mean weakness. But the modern feminine template rewards the opposite. Loud over listening. Dominance over intuition. Curation over connection. Women are taught to build a brand, not embody a truth. To create an image that draws attention, not a presence that draws love. And it works until it doesn't. Because eventually the mask slips. The real energy shows. The control surfaces. The need for dominance leaks out in tone, in timing, in tension. And suddenly the man who was intrigued starts to feel trapped. Not because she's too emotional, but because she's not emotionally open. Not because she's too strong, but because her strength won't make space for his. He doesn't need her to be passive. He needs her to be real. To be soft where it matters. To trust his masculine energy instead of trying to outmatch it. When she lets go of the performance, she becomes magnetic, not just appealing. He doesn't feel challenged, he feels inspired. True femininity isn't costume. It's calibration. It's how she moves through life when no one's watching. It's in her stillness, her depth, her unshakable grace. It doesn't demand attention, it invites devotion. And when a woman drops the act and comes home to that energy, everything changes. Because men can see the difference. More importantly, they can feel it. And once they do, the game playing stops. The walls drop. The real connection begins. And all the pretending suddenly feels like a waste of something far more beautiful. When femininity disappears, the impact isn't just personal, it's cultural. The ripple hits everything. Families fracture. Homes lose warmth. Communities grow colder. It starts subtle. More tension, less tenderness. But over time, that missing energy becomes a gaping hole in the emotional fabric of society. Children grow up in houses filled with stress, not peace. Not because their mothers don't care, but because their mothers are overwhelmed, hardened, in survival mode. Always doing. Always fixing. Always holding it together. Nurturing gets replaced with managing. Comfort becomes control. And the home stops feeling like a sanctuary. Boys raised without feminine warmth don't learn what it means to feel held. They're taught to toughen up early to earn approval through performance. They're never shown how to soften without shame. So they suppress, then explode, or withdraw completely. Emotion becomes a liability, not a tool. Intimacy feels foreign. Vulnerability dangerous. Girls watching all this get a different lesson. They see strength as struggle. Femininity as sacrifice. So they copy the same model, take charge, stay guarded, never let your guard down. They learn that being soft gets you hurt. That being kind gets you used. So they sharpen, harden, compete, and call it empowerment. The cycle keeps spinning. Relationships become mirrors of this imbalance. No polarity. No balance. Just power dynamics wrapped in modern language. Dating becomes draining. Marriage feels like a contract. Love turns into duty. And connection, the thing we all crave most, feels nearly impossible to find. We scroll past each other. We argue online. We compete for attention but avoid eye contact. Everyone's proving, no one's receiving. The masculine is overextended, burned out, and unsupported. The feminine is buried, ridiculed, or confused with weakness. There's no harmony, only hustle. We've built a world that rewards efficiency but punishes softness. Productivity is praised. Patience is overlooked. Emotional labor is invisible. And yet, when crisis hits, what do we reach for? Comfort, stability, care. All the things the feminine energy naturally provides, but now struggles to access. This isn't about blaming women. This is about recognizing what's been lost. The feminine wasn't removed, it was conditioned out. Systematically, slowly. Through messaging, expectations, and years of subtle pressure to be more, do more, achieve more. But in the chase for external success, something internal went quiet. And without it, society feels cold. Fast. Fragmented. We see more burnout, more anxiety, more loneliness than ever before. People aren't just tired, they're soul tired. And it's not because they're weak. It's because they're disconnected from something essential. We don't just need better systems. We need softer energy. We need the return of warmth, of gentleness, of emotional depth, not just in private but in public, in leadership, in families, in daily life. When the feminine leads with grace, everything softens. When it's suppressed, everything hardens. The world doesn't need more speed, it needs more soul. And without the feminine essence anchoring us, we're just spinning faster toward emptiness. Men aren't leaving because they stopped caring. They're leaving because staying feels like drowning. It's not anger, it's exhaustion. Quiet, steady, soul-deep exhaustion. Not from work, not from responsibility, but from the constant emotional war zone modern relationships have become. He enters the space hoping for peace. What he finds is criticism, control, tension. No room to breathe. No room to lead. Every decision questioned. Every effort dissected. No matter how much he provides, it never feels like enough. He's not choosing solitude out of bitterness, he's choosing it to stay sane. The idea of partnership has turned into pressure. He's expected to give endlessly, but his needs are often dismissed. If he speaks up, he's defensive. If he stays quiet, he's detached. There's no winning. Just walking on a tightrope that keeps getting thinner. He's told to be strong, but punished when his strength shows up. Told to be present, yet rarely appreciated for the way he holds it all together. When everything he brings is treated like obligation instead of offering, he begins to pull back, not to punish but to protect. This isn't weakness. It's a boundary. A silent decision to stop pouring into a cup with a hole in it. He may not say the words, but his actions speak. I refuse to bleed for something that doesn't nourish me. And he walks, not because he's a coward but because no one noticed he was bleeding in the first place. Men crave softness too. Not just touch but tone. Not just sex but safety. They long for a place where they're not always proving, always fixing, always being measured. They want to be met, not managed. Supported, not scrutinized. Inspired, not instructed. But that space has become rare. The feminine that once welcomed and balanced his drive has been replaced with resistance. Not because women are malicious, but because they've been hardened by their own battles. And now both sides are defending instead of connecting. So men detach. Quietly. Gradually. First emotionally, then physically. They stop engaging. Stop trying. Stop hoping. Not out of spite but out of fatigue. Because a man can only carry so much weight before he puts it down. And what's left is a generation walking away. From dating. From marriage. From intimacy altogether. Not because they hate women, but because they're tired of relationships that cost them their peace. Tired of being treated like machines, not men. Tired of giving with no return. This isn't about giving up on love. It's about giving up on struggle disguised as love. About choosing silence over shouting, distance over drama, solitude over stress. He's not colder, he's clearer. And unless the dynamic shifts, he's not coming back. The tragedy? He didn't want to leave. He wanted to be received. But when presence becomes punishment, exit becomes the only mercy he has left. Women were promised freedom but handed fatigue. They chased empowerment and found emptiness. What was sold as liberation slowly became isolation. Strong, successful, accomplished, and quietly aching. The lie wasn't in the desire for independence, but in the belief that feminine energy had to be sacrificed to get it. She can do it all now. The job, the bills, the schedule, the goals. But with every checkbox ticked, something still feels missing. Not because she's weak, not because she's failing, but because she's running on a mode that was never meant to be permanent. Constant output. Constant control. Constant pressure to prove worth through doing. Underneath the performance is a tired heart. Not just physically drained, but emotionally malnourished. Because the one thing she truly needs, connection, requires surrender, not strategy. And no one taught her how to do that without guilt or fear. So she stays in motion, convinced that slowing down equals losing value. But the cost is rising. Anxiety, loneliness, disconnection. Nights where success feels hollow. Days where strength feels like armor, not freedom. She mastered survival, but forgot what thriving feels like. Because in rejecting softness, she unknowingly rejected parts of herself that make love, intimacy, and joy possible. She wasn't built to constantly compete, to dominate every room, to always be the one solving, leading, deciding. That doesn't make her less. It makes her human. It means her feminine essence needs room to breathe, not be buried under a version of power that doesn't fit. Deep down, she longs for rest. Not laziness, rest. The kind of rest that comes from trust. From not having to carry everything. From knowing someone else can hold the weight with her, not against her. But that rest is impossible when she's been taught to fear dependence, to associate receiving with weakness. She wants love. Real love. The kind that melts defenses, not builds more. But love can't land on concrete. It needs open ground. And right now, she's armored in expectations, achievements, and unspoken wounds. The world told her to become everything, and she did. But in the process, she lost the one thing no one could give her back. Her ability to be without constantly doing. Men feel it too. The hardness. The tension. They admire her drive but can't feel her heart. They respect her hustle but miss her warmth. She's present but unreachable. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's been in survival mode for too long. This isn't her fault. It's a cultural misdirection. She followed the rules, played the game, reached the goals, and now she's quietly wondering why it still doesn't feel like enough. The answer isn't in doing more. It's in remembering who she was before the world told her to become everything else. Power isn't the absence of softness. Real power flows from authenticity. And when a woman returns to her natural rhythm, when she embraces the strength in her stillness, she doesn't lose anything. She finally starts to feel whole. There's still time to come back. Not to tradition. Not to roles. But to truth. To essence. To what lives beneath the noise. Femininity isn't gone, it's waiting. Quietly. Patiently. Under layers of programming, pain, and pressure. Not broken. Just buried. It doesn't need to be built. It needs to be remembered. Felt again. Trusted. The journey isn't about becoming something new. It's about returning to what was always there before the world told you it was unsafe to be soft. Before you were taught to lead with fear instead of flow. This return doesn't begin in a relationship. It starts alone. In the silence. In the mirror. In the moments where no one's watching and you finally exhale. You let go of the script. You stop performing. You give yourself permission to be what you were never allowed to be. Open. Not because a man demands it. Not for attention or approval. But because your soul is tired of pretending. Tired of carrying everything. Tired of wearing masks just to feel protected. Freedom isn't in control. It's in the surrender to your truest self. When that energy awakens, everything shifts. The way you move. The way you speak. The way others respond. People feel it. They lean in. Not because you're louder, but because your energy speaks first. It says, I am safe. I am present. I am whole. The right man doesn't want to compete with you. He wants to serve the part of you that inspires him to rise. Not because you pushed him, but because your softness called something higher out of him. That's the magic of feminine energy. It doesn't demand, it draws. But you can't fake it. You can't pose your way there. It only comes when you're willing to release the grip, to trust the unknown, to rebuild the relationship with yourself before asking someone else to meet you. It means letting the heart lead again. Not blindly but bravely. Letting emotion exist without apology. Letting peace matter more than power. Letting presence replace performance. Not shrinking, rooting star. Not hiding, revealing star. This isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The kind of wisdom that knows chaos isn't conquered with control, it's calmed with care. That knows love doesn't thrive in tension, it grows in trust. That knows true strength is found in being seen without armor. And the world needs more of this. Not just in romance but everywhere. In leadership. In families. In art. In how we treat each other. Because without the feminine, everything speeds up and breaks down. What's missing isn't ambition, it's soul. So the invitation is clear. Come home. Not to the past but to yourself. Not to comfort zones but to truth. Choose softness without shame. Choose depth over defense. Choose to feel even when it's hard. Because when a woman lives from that place, she becomes unforgettable. Not because of how she looks, but because of how she makes the world feel. And that is power no system can teach and no culture can replace. If this stirred something in you, something ancient, quiet, and true, subscribe. Not for content, but for a deeper conversation with what the world forgot but your soul remembers.